Welcome to the Kentucky Auto Accident Podcast. Louisville attorney Jim Desmond has been handling injury cases related to traffic accidents for over 20 years. Jim will provide valuable information to help you and your family. He wants you to understand the important issues you need to know when it comes to handling car accidents and motorcycle wrecks in Kentucky. There's a lot riding on this, so let's get started. Friends, welcome back. Today we're here with Louisville car wreck attorney Jim Desmond, and we're going to talk about what happens after the car wreck has occurred. So, Jim, welcome back to the studio. Let's jump. Yeah, you're very welcome. Let's jump into this real quick. Okay. Because a lot of things are going to happen fairly quickly, and unless you've done this before, you're probably going to be a little confused and maybe even a little overwhelmed.
Right, and hopefully people have one or two car accidents a lifetime is plenty. So hopefully they haven't done it before. You know, one of the first things, Jim, that they need to understand is, granted, if you're not able to, I get it. But if you're at the car accident scene, you got the cell phone, pull it out, start taking pictures. You have a witness that comes up, say something to you, take a picture of their license, take a picture of the cars, okay, where they're located. I have so many cases that kind of live and die on what's happened at the accident scene because, again, once it comes down the road, they'll say, well, there was a witness who came up to me, but we don't have their contact information. Or they assume the police officer was going to get the witness's information. That didn't happen. Or the position of the vehicles. That's the other thing that happens sometimes is that, again, a picture alone, sometimes you see which lane of travel that person is in. So, right off the bat, you said about, when the car accident happens, the things we do afterwards we're going to get to in a second. But when you're at the accident scene, if you have a means, I don't even want you calling families per se right off the bat. That's horrible to say. But if you can get out and start snapping pictures immediately when you go in to check and see if the other guy's okay, it helps a lot.
And be safe while you're doing that. I mean, obviously a lot's going on, but yeah, I mean, pictures are worth 1,000 words.
We have to go back a lot of times in the car accident scene, and we look for cameras lots of times. We'll have to look for video or whatever it might be, ring cameras, surveillance cameras, because again, we hear people need to understand there's a real central concept in the law, which is it's not what we think happened, it's what can we prove. So again, you think the other guy ran the red light, and at the scene he says one thing, and at the other time he basically, later on he understands what's at stake, and it's like, oh no, I think I had a yellow. I think the stories change, and again, that's why the picture is worth 1,000 words. Knowing if there's any video around, getting the names of witnesses. I have said so many cases where a police officer does do his job, okay, very well. They do it well a lot of times. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, but they do their job very well sometimes and put a witness listed, and they will say in the narrative part, the witness supports, a position, for example, against my driver, let's say. And with that in mind, again, I'll look at the police report and think, okay, we've got a swearing contest. You got an independent witness who has nothing at stake. We're going to lose that case, okay? So again, the witness alone, I mean, that can be huge. That can make all the difference between a swearing contest is who had the red light, who had the green light, was a guy speeding, all these type of things.
Right. The next thing, depending on the extent of the injuries, you might need to go to the hospital. And so that might be... I tell
you, if the car looks like crap, is what I say, then go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Take the ambulance ride to the hospital. You're not a doctor. You don't know what's going on. There could be other things.
Your adrenaline's going right now. You may not feel the pain that you're going to feel here really shortly.
And it demonstrates right off the bat that you're hurt. I mean, cases live and die on the medical records. I tell people that all the time. So it demonstrates again that you are hurt, that this was a good impact. If it's a tap, I get it. But if your car looks like, if it looks like an accordion, take the ambulance ride to the hospital. Let them check you out. Because again, what happens usually for most of my clients, the next day is when they really start to feel it. And then they're trying to get into a doctor, and then the doctor might be like, well, I don't want to take a car accident case. I want to do this. There's a bunch of things that can go on. But, while you've got the ability to do it, take the ride to the hospital, and don't walk out of the hospital. Just I know it takes a while to get in there sometimes. Let them do what they got to do. Let them do what they got to do.
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of people are concerned with is who's going to pay for all of that.
Yeah. Well, you got two avenues in Kentucky, okay, and actually in Indiana as well. Kentucky's a no-fault state. Everybody gets that wrong. What no-fault means is that my insurance company, and we're more correctly, the insurance company for the vehicle you're in, which can be your own, okay, or someone else's, covers your medical bills up to the first $10,000. So we can use the no-fault or PIP coverage, same thing, to cover those medical bills. It will also, even though PIP or no-fault is supposed to be primary over health insurance, if you got health insurance, we can fall back and use that as well. I do that a lot of times where if an ER bill is $15,000 and would exhaust the PIP, if I can successfully get that ER bill to go to the health insurance, I can preserve the PIP, give my clients a means of treating a little bit longer, and basically, spreading the dollar bill, so to speak.
Well, and you also have the ability to negotiate often with the healthcare providers, with the hospitals, to try to get that reduced a little bit. And I've heard of you doing that over and over again. In fact, we've talked about that in previous editions, and people don't realize that your attorney actually can help you out a lot.
Oh yeah,
but you've got to get one involved.
But again, an attorney, okay, then this is what I've said before. An attorney really has two jobs. It's not just how much money I get you with the right hand. It's how much money I keep. How much do I keep people out of your settlement with the left hand? I always use the example and say, if I recover $100,000 for a client and I pay out $98,000 to everybody else, then what good is it? It doesn't make any sense. So again, part of my job as an attorney is to minimize any of the deductions. How do you do that? Either negotiate directly with medical providers and or use your health insurance where they have contracted rates. I'll see Medicaid's usually the one you can see it the most. You'll have a U of L bill, University of Louisville hospital bill with, say, $30,000 charge, and Medicaid might pay out $3,000 or $4,000 to satisfy that bill. Medicaid has a right to get their money back. It's called a health insurance lien, okay? But again, their right to recover is the 3 or 4, not the 30.
Which leaves a lot more money left over for the accident victim.
Potentially, yes. And that's
you talked about getting in touch with you. What's the best way for somebody to do that real quick? I know we're not done with the episode.
I love my cell phone. People, I don't even like my clients to email me because I know it could go to spam or something else. And if they do email me, I say, send me a text and let me know you did it. The cell phone, I've used it. I think attorneys are crazy for not copying it. I mean, obviously I can't copyright the thing or tell people not to do it. It is people can reach me directly on my cell phone. It's been on the web for since 2005. And, again, they can call me, the ways we can talk directly, they can text me, whatever it might be. Many, many times when I first get a phone call from a client, we'll talk about it, and I can tell either we have either a bad connection or maybe there's a language issue. Many times I can say, look, text me what you've got, the police report number, the date of accident, their name, and I can try to get the police report. Now, all of a sudden, boom, not only do I have that for them a little bit as a courtesy, but also it gives me information. We can talk intelligently about that case, especially during our first meeting.
And that leads me to the next point. You're kind of old school in that regard. Mm-hmm. You like to meet face-to-face with your clients.
I think you got to. You have to. Okay, being an attorney is a position of trust. How can you not meet with your client? I found somebody the other day, they switched from a big firm over to me, and it was, I asked, well, did they meet with the client? And they're like, no, they did everything electronically. And I'm like, look, if I have to do that, that's fine. But I want to sit down with my client. I want them to get to know me. I want them to know who I am, because what's going to happen is, let's face it, an insurance company's job is to try to keep from paying out money. So let's say we get a case that, is not trial worthy, and yet the law offer's not where we want it to be. I mean, again, my client's got to have a certain level of trust to know what I'm saying when it comes to what's our next option. Is it worth it? They've got to understand that, what our game plan is overall.
That makes sense. And this meeting is really kind of a game plan meeting. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have the expectations. They're going to kind of know what your next steps are, because you're going to start contacting the insurance company on their behalf, right?
Right. Well, okay, the biggest complaint against attorneys is not malpractice, it's lack of communication. So in that first meeting, if I can lay out a little bit my game plan and where I'm going to go and what the process is generally, and obviously it's going to change, but if I can do that over time, then again, it makes it easier on me. They're not going to be asking me questions every other minute that we've gone through. They understand when I'm going to send them a letter, which way it is. So yeah, and I think it's important because the other thing about a game plan, every client hears from you hear so much bad information. I mean, this is where I show my arrogant side. Anybody knows me, I'm pretty arrogant when it comes to car accidents, hopefully not other things. But, I tell people all the time, listen to what I'm telling you, because when it comes to car accidents, everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got a story, and a lot of it's malarkey. Johnny wasn't hurt and got $25,000, or 3 times your medicals, those formula exists in the 80s. That's so much is just, excuse my French, crap, okay? But that's why, again, I want to lay out a game plan. I want to get the client to understand what my goal is, the expectations, and such like that, because that depends upon a lot. I mean, that shows whether we can get the case done or not. I mean, I don't want a client thinking for 6 months you got a $100,000 case when I looked at it from minute one and thought maybe it might be $10,000.
Well, and part of that is you communicating with the client how they can avoid making this harder, how they can avoid making it more difficult.
I love a good client. And a good client is one that sends me medical bills. They keep me informed. It doesn't have to be all the time. We're not going to talk all the time, but that's, again, back to the cell phone, making it very easy for them to send me a quick text, about their treatment status. When they go to a different provider, one of the parts about at the end of a case, I have to pull together all the medical providers and all the medical bills.
And your medical provider is basically your doctor or somebody who's...
Doctors, hospitals, chiropractors. Yeah. Well, if I see on a no-fault log that an MRI place has been paid and I don't have those records and bills, now I got to put a stop to everything, go back and request that. Versus if they had told me at that time when I was going through and kind of initiating the end part of the case, I could get it all out at that time. It makes it... clients, I have a really good group of clients, and they give out my name a lot, and I appreciate it and such like that. And during the case, they can make it easier just by keeping us informed. I always say, as a lawyer, we are used to dealing with bad facts. We deal with it all the time. Just don't send us in a courtroom unprepared. Okay, let us know everything that's basically happening under the sun.
Well, and that's one of the reasons you give self-addressed stamped envelopes sometimes to clients to say, look, when you get a bill, if you happen to get a bill at your house, just mail it to me. Send it to me.
Because of the ER bill alone. Well, okay, for emergency room visit, you're going to have the ER bill, you're going to have a emergency room doctor bill, and you're going to have a radiology bill. It's 20 times easier to get all those things rather than, to basically try to track them down. The other thing is, a lot of those, I was just thinking on that, some of them are notorious for not sending out the bills timely, and all of a sudden we're dealing with something 8 months from now, and I don't even want to go there. But, the self-addressed stamped envelopes are easy. I tell clients, set them aside. You need more. But it's a great way to get those initial bills in and know that we don't miss a $50 charge from a radiologist.
Well, and one of the other things is, they should contact you sooner in the situation than later, because there's a lot of things that can happen, a lot of things that can go wrong, and a lot of mistakes you might have to clean up.
Well, I mean, if you've ever, not even a case, but if you've ever picked up a project of any kind, if you can start from scratch, it's easier than if you come in midway and try to, correct what somebody else has done. It's not, so from day one, that's why I always tell people, look, if you've been in a car accident, even if you don't have a personal injury claim, they can call me. Because, again, I'd rather get them on track. Most of the time what happens is I'll hear a phone call, they've gotten some bad information, I'll give them some good information, and then if they don't make a decision right, then that's fine. And so many times they'll call me back 2 weeks later and they'll say, do you remember a conversation? And whether I do or don't, we at least have it on track. And basically we can get them in the office and kind of go from there. So again, I'd rather have everybody understand. I mean, car accidents are a different kind of breed. I know it's a different kind of breed. That's another way, but it's a unique position in the legal field where it's kind of, a creature unto itself. And so I would rather know that, I'd rather know people get it right to begin with. And also, I'd rather give them right off the advice right off the bat. But that's how you do it with your cell phone. It takes 5-10 minutes.
That makes a lot of sense. One of the things I'd like to do
I got a silence done. So
one of the things I'd like to do is kind of wrap up the episode. We're talking about things that are different. And you kind of hit on one, is the fact that you do give a cell phone. You would rather meet with the client face-to-face, which I think is a tremendous benefit. But there's also that issue about attorney's fees. Do you want to kind of jump into that?
Yeah, I wish everybody in town would do it the way I do it. Okay, so what I do on attorney fees, first of all, attorney fees are not set in stone. There's no monopoly. There's no law that says you have to charge this or that. So somebody could charge 20%, 33 1/3%, 50%, whatever. I charge 1/3 pre-litigation, 40% if it ever goes to lawsuit. Most personal injury attorneys are around that. Some big law firms have started to go to 40% for auto accidents, even if it's without litigation, and I think that's insane. Don't pay it. That's my advice to you. Any good personal injury attorney will tell you, they'll have in their provision that you don't owe anything unless we recover something, which that's good, and I have that same thing. The part that is, and we've been doing that for 20 years now, I guess. The short story on that, because I bring that up because one of the big firms advertised the other day that was a big thing, and I'm like, we've been doing that for 20 years in Louisville. It's like, come on. But so you don't owe anything unless you recover something. But the part I like to do differently, and this is where every attorney that in personal injury, especially at least a car wreck, should do it, is I now have a written policy. I won't take more as an attorney's fee than the client will as a net settlement. And that kind of sounds like a fancy way of saying things, but it basically means if the medical bills eat up my client's settlement, okay, and the case has not gone to litigation, it's a pre-litigation case because that's the only way you can do it. It's litigation eats up other things, but that's another story. But if the medical bills have eaten up the client's settlement, then I'm not going to have an attorney fee that's greater than what the client puts in their pocket. Okay. So again, if my fee is supposed to be $5,000 and the medical bills eat up a client's settlement and they're only putting $3,000 in their pocket, I've got to lower my fee so they make more money than I do.
And you feel as confident as possible in that policy. That's why you've actually put it in writing, and that is something that you've done videos about. I know you've talked about it on TV on Wave 3. You've done a lot of this to try to say, look, you weren't in the wreck as the attorney. The victim was. The car accident victim was there, and they ought to be the ones that at least get some recovery of these damages, more so actually.
Right.
Than the
well,
attorney.
they should get the lion's share. Is really not even some recovery. And don't get me wrong. I just lowered. I have one case where to get the health plan to take less, I lowered my fee to the equivalent amount the health plan is going to take. And again, I mean, it was a substantial reduction, but again, I hit people up for things, and that client knows. She's already given me, 2 Google reviews, if I remember right. Already given my name out to somebody else. I would rather have that in the long term be the situation. I don't want the short term, situation. I compete against the big guys. I don't want to say their names. I compete against the big TV advertisers because by the way of the customer service and making sure the client's happy and getting that long-term relationship. Because I don't want you to call me. I don't want you to have to call me. I should say I don't want you to have to call me for a car wreck. But if you've been in one, I want you to be able to call me, and whether you have an injury claim or not. So,
well, Jim, as I wrap up this episode with you today, the one thing that kind of comes through is you like to do things the right way. And I've known you for many, many years. And that's the one thing I know about you both as an attorney and as a friend is that you always like to do things the right way. And I think that really comes through in the way you use and adjust your attorney fees when it's, again, the right thing to do, when it comes to having a face-to-face meeting, which, again, is the right thing to do, and when it comes to just simply picking up the phone, even if you're at dinner with your kids or with other people. I've seen you say, hey, can you guys give me just a minute? I've got a client calling, and you'll step away and actually do that because, again, it's the right thing to do.
Well, it's the right thing to do. And again, I always say to my kids in general and something, but it applies here too, who's your target audience, okay? For me, my target audience is my client. I want my client to be happy how I've used my knowledge and my skill to advance their case. And I want to be able to say to them, if you appreciate it and everything else, then keep my name out there and keep it going. Because again, I've done this. I did my own practice from scratch from day one in 2005. So it's been 18 years. I got about another 13 to 15 years to go. And then maybe I'll finally, put up maybe then I'll turn the cell phone off about 15 years from now. So
there we go. Jim, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for your time. And friends, thanks for listening. We'll be back again soon. Take care. Bye-bye. That's it for this episode of the Kentucky Auto Accident Podcast. Jim Desmond will be back in 2 weeks to provide information you need to know related to car accidents and motorcycle wrecks in Kentucky. Until then, check out AttorneyDesmond.com. You can also follow him on Facebook at Attorney James Desmond. Drive safely, and please remember to buckle up.